reported extensively from Iran. Rasul, let me start with you, in fact. Why is Iran attacking Gulf states' energy infrastructure, and how is it gaining the outcome?
Well, for Iranians, I think they have been quite clear. Now, what they're implementing is what they have been saying in the last couple of weeks. So again and again, we have heard from the Iranian officials that in case of the war, they're going to do two things. First, they're going to raise the cost for Washington and to force Washington thinking twice. They were hoping that Washington is going to reassess its position and seeing that the war is going to be extremely costly for them and maybe changing their posture. And second one, regionalizing the war. So bringing a huge cost for the regional countries and forcing the regional countries that somehow they will put pressure on Washington and changing the US or the trajectory of the events against Iran. So here they are implementing these two policies as the strategy of the deterrence. Now they have started, in the first day, they have started by attacking the US military facilities, which by many it was understandable.
Right.
However,
but no one expected them to go as far as attacking energy infrastructure.
They were hinting that.
Were they? Okay.
Because the Fars News Agency, which is affiliated with the Revolutionary Guards, constantly was sharing the pictures of the energy facilities across the region. And now, so they are heating the energy the facilities and the airports. This is where it hurts most because the whole image of the Gulf is based on that.
Right.
However, my concern is that if that will not be enough for Iranians to see that the regional countries are not putting enough pressure on Washington, then the third stage could come. And in the third stage, Iran could start...
So, AKA, if pretty much like one of Iran's main plans is, look, we're about to make things so hard in the Gulf from oil, water, food, that these Arab countries are going to come to you guys and beg America to stop, or they're going to start pulling out major investments. And I mean, I'll be real with you. It's Middle Eastern money that's holding up our economy on the AI side. Surprise, surprise. So for all my Muslim haters out there, yeah, I'll be real with you. Muslims are one of the main reasons why our economy ain't tanking right now. So you might want to thank them.
Targeting the strategic depots that are preserved for the wartime, such as food depots and the water supplies. And if that is not good enough, in the fourth stage, it could start attacking the residential areas, saying, well, if our children are dying, then your children are also going to be harmed.
That is quite...
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what that... and like I said, I know a lot of people are a bit... Well... when it comes to the whole girls' school bombing, I know there's people who want to be like, oh, it was Iran, or oh, it was Israel. Well, guys, we don't know. But all we know is that, well, Iran is taking it like it's us. So and let's be real, they've said that too. You're going after our kids, we'll go after your kids. And I'm just like, oh yeah, this is setting a precedent that nobody wanted to get to. Like nobody wanted to get here, but here we are. This is why war is not good, because, innocent people get bombed that invoke tensions, evoke the fire in people's heart to really go out there and, well, cause turmoil.
Concerning. Mohammed, before I come to you about how might Gulf states respond, I just wanted to ask Wolfgang about the Iranian strategy militarily. Does the pattern of strikes that we've seen from Iran, Wolfgang, suggest a deliberate campaign against these targets or something more fragmented and improvised?
Well, it's in part an organized campaign as far as it is centrally controlled from Tehran, and in parts it's more improvised, especially regarding to some drone site commanders who are not really in touch with their headquarters in Tehran anymore and who are allowed to strike targets that they believe makes most sense. Let me briefly add with regard to the likeliness of an extended air campaign of Iran against civilian and infrastructure targets in the Gulf states. It is certainly not in the interest of Iran to become...
Oh, guys, you got any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements? I'll be happy to read out loud and engage with it. Just $2 and up. Help us reach our goal to open up the call-in line. Appreciate the support. And let's not forget to double tap that screen and like the video.
The subject, the target of retaliation of the Gulf states. One must be aware that not only the Air Force of Qatar, but also Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have hundreds of modern sophisticated fighter jets, and Iran cannot have any interest whatsoever to become subject to airstrikes from these powerful air forces.
Mohammed Al-Masri, on the possible retaliation of Gulf states, they have so far appeared to be cautious. about direct military involvement? Do you see their position as primarily a deterrent message, or is there a scenario where they could be actively involved militarily?
Well, I do think there's a scenario. I mean, I think it depends in part on some of what Rasul was saying, the kind of the extent to which Iran is going to apply pressure. But I've been saying for a couple of days now, I see this response or potential response one of two directions. Either they could really ramp up pressure on the U.S. administration, basically tell the Trump administration that enough is enough. We can't tolerate this anymore.
Yeah, it's like, bro, we can't tolerate it. Like, we're losing oil, like we're losing oil profits. I mean, we're about to lose out on the water. Iran, I mean, they kind of give us our food, so we can't go all the way against Iran. So yeah, it's either, bro, it is looking like Iran could definitely make us back off by making it hard on our biggest investors, which is these guys in the Middle East.
Longer, you need to stop this war and apply pressure on Netanyahu to make sure that he stops from his end as well. That's one possibility.
But do they have that leverage today?
I think the Gulf states have quite a lot of leverage. I've said this in many contexts over the past couple of years. They have a lot of leverage. There's a huge amount of economic investment that the Gulf countries provide.
Bro, I mean, bro. Trillions of dollars, guys, trillions of dollars into our tech, into our military weaponry, AI, of course. Like, bro, these guys have put trillions of dollars into our AI. Like, one of the reasons why AI is doing so well is because of the investments from the Middle East. One of the reasons why weapons manufacturing is doing so well. Well, $1 trillion was put in by Qatar. And I believe Saudi Arabia. Nope, it was Qatar. So, yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny how a lot of people don't like these people, but it's like, yeah, they're kind of keeping our economy afloat, though. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy.
To the United States, they've pledged upwards of, depending on the estimates, potentially $2 trillion. Right? It's an awful lot of money. That's one thing that's just one lever that they could pull, and there are other, there's the oil and natural gas prices that they can manipulate as well, potentially. But the other possibility is, and this is more to your point, they could take a more aggressive stance toward Iran and either engage Iran directly, which I think at this point remains very unlikely, or they could open their bases up to the
guys. Let's be honest. Like, yes, these countries have came out and condemned Iran. They're not supporting us in our war against Iran. They've condemned Iran for their attacks on their land, and I mean, rightfully so. But let's be real, they can't really do too much to Iran since, well, Iran actually controls some of their food. And I mean, the Strait of Hormuz, which a lot of these countries make their money off of, and they rely on for energy. So, yeah.
Americans, or let's remember that they've told the Americans so far that they do not want these bases to be used for attacks on Iran. But if they were to allow the Americans to do that, then that would provide even greater edge to the Americans and the Israelis. That, though, is also unlikely because they will then be seen as cooperating with the Americans and the Israelis.
They're in a very difficult position, aren't they? Rasul, Wolfgang made an interesting point about reports that Iranian drone operations are not fully centralized. What do you know about the current state of command and control in Iran following the killing of the supreme leader? How in control are they of the military?
I think one of the first hints about what is the current situation of the IRGC is what has happened 2 days ago. So an energy facility in Oman came under attack. And it was quite surprising because Oman has been the main mediator since decades, even before the Islamic Revolution. Whenever Iran is mediating or having a diplomatic problem with the world, so Oman will be there. And so that has been asked to the Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, and he said that, well, it was not a central decision, meaning it was a mistake. And he said that there has been some isolated units which were conducting the pre-planned action. So I'm not sure of that. So IRGC is simply saying that we have adopted a strategy of decentralization because in the last war, during the 12 days, due to over-centralization, it was extremely difficult, the command chain to work and the operations to work smooth. And in some cases, when particularly the communications are interrupted, so they could not act. But based on the preparations, so some local remote units have been authorized that based on their own risk assessment, they can develop the strategies. So that is very well possible. However, it's impossible to verify this because in many cases, what we are seeing is that despite again and again being attacked, despite all the warnings since October 7th onward, Iran has always been caught off guard. So, and that is the main question. When are you going to be ready? So is it a part of a strategy or simply it is because of the lack of proper organization and planning?
Okay, Wolfgang, your thoughts about what Rasul said there. And also, how long can Iran sustain this current military campaign as it stands?
Iran can sustain the military campaign against Israel only for a limited time because they are running out of especially important transport erector launchers, the mobile launching systems for the mid-range ballistic missiles. They are able to sustain the campaign against the Gulf states much longer because they have a much larger quantity of short-range ballistic missiles, more than 1,200, allegedly even 1,500, and hundreds of these mobile launching systems that can be used to launch short-range ballistic missiles against the Gulf states. And moreover, they have more than 10,000, probably between 12 and 15,000 combat drones that can be used. And these combat drones are not so much a threat to Israel because they have a long warning notice.
Because Israel has like a little laser defense system that pretty much fried these drones, and that's good for them. They don't really have nothing for the hypersonic missiles, but the drones are able to defend themselves well against. The other Middle Eastern countries, yeah, they're getting decimated by these drones that are very cheap to make. Yes, that are very cheap to make, and Iran is probably producing as we speak. So trust me, it doesn't look like they're going to run out of drones anytime soon. But drones aren't enough to honestly fight us or Israel. Now, to bomb these Middle Eastern countries, sure, but to actually put up a fight against us, not at all.
This before the drones arrive in Israel. And that's quite different with the Gulf states. Here we are talking about minutes. So those drones are a bigger threat to the Gulf states than to Israel. And I assume that Iran would be able to continue the campaign against the Gulf states for a much longer period of time. But the question is, does it really make sense for them before they drag the Gulf states into the war?
Mohammed, your thoughts about this, and how calibrated do you think Iran's targeting decisions are right now?
Look, there's a sports analogy. They say in boxing, they say everyone has a plan until they're punched in the mouth. And I don't doubt that the Iranians made extensive preparations over the past several months, in particular since the June war. But they've been hit quite hard over the past few days by the Israelis and the Americans. The leadership structure has obviously been compromised. And as Rasul was saying, we don't exactly know to what extent the command and control structure is intact.
Right.
So they're in a very difficult position. But I also think that they view this as kind of existential. And so they're going to be, to use another boxing analogy, they're going to be throwing haymakers. I mean, I think that they realize that it's kind of fight or die in some respects. So I think they're digging their heels in and planning on a long war.
Right. Now, if they're planning on a long war, when it comes to the Israelis and Americans, Mohammed, there seems to be a divergence as to how long this can go on for. We heard from President Trump talking about 4-5 weeks possibly, but Netanyahu was saying this can be quick. What does that say to you about the strategy, the objectives from the Israelis and the Americans, and whether it can succeed, given that there seems to be a divergence there?
Yeah, well, I think there's clearly an inconsistency. They're still kind of looking for a common narrative, but I think it just underscores that kind of what Marco Rubio said yesterday, that Israel forced America's hand in this. I'm of the mind that,
I mean, he didn't say it exactly like that. So let's be honest here. No, he pretty much kind of said he pretty much said that, well, Israel was gonna attack. We knew Israel was gonna attack, and if we didn't follow Israel up, then we were gonna pretty much, well, we were pretty much gonna get attacked first. So yes, Rubio pretty much admitted that we kind of got drug into this by Israel, because if Israel wasn't going to attack Iran, then Iran wasn't going to attack the surrounding Gulf states. Like, period, point blank. But because Israel attacked Iran, and Iran said that they'll do so, they did say that if you attack us, we'll attack the Gulf states and Israel. So apparently Israel, not giving a fuck about the Gulf states, went in there and attacked. And we followed them up on it, because if we didn't, they were going to attack our assets anyway. So yes, Israel pretty much dragged us into that war, or dragged us into this war.
The United States didn't necessarily want this war.
That's what I want y'all to understand, honestly. It's like, you know, all this talk about, oh, but they're about to make nuclear weapons and all this set. That's why we attack. No, it's not. We attack because Israel wanted to attack. Not our president, but Israel's president, Benjamin Netanyahu.
At least not now, but it was Benjamin Netanyahu again, kind of getting his way with Donald Trump. And it's ironic, as many have noted, that the America First president has become almost kind of Israel first during this second term. So look, I think Israel wants chaos. I certainly don't think this is about a nuclear weapon.
Israel is fighting a 7-front war apparently against countries that, these countries don't even know it's hostile. Like, trust me, like Egypt, Turkey, Jordan. Well, okay, things kind of always been hostile with Jordan, but when it comes to Turkey and Egypt, the fact that Israel's saying, yeah, we're in a war with these guys because of the Muslim Brotherhood and all this crazy stuff, I'm just like, so pretty much everybody in this region is your enemy, and you're just trying to topple all these guys, and you're gonna lie and give us whatever excuse to get us to go in there for you, because I mean, it's looking like that's it. Because let's be real, look at the Middle East. We took all these countries down, and I'm be real with you, it ain't help us. But I'll tell you right now, man, Israel's been living good in the Middle East ever since.
I don't necessarily think it's about regime change. I think they want a collapsed
until October 7th, of course.
State. I think they want a weakened region all around them so that they can emerge as the only hegemon.
Right. Wolfgang, your thoughts. You know, when Washington says the objective is to destroy Iran's missile and nuclear capabilities, what does that actually require militarily? And who, between President Trump and Netanyahu, who is right on the timeline? Trump says 5 weeks, possibly. Netanyahu says quicker. What are your thoughts?
The current discussion about the timeline is part of information warfare. I would say the Americans have planned for a war for just a few weeks until they have reached their objective, that they would be able to enable local resistance movements, for example, among the Kurds, to take over at least part of the country. I would say the decision to start the war was definitely a decision by the US President Donald Trump. Why? If the Iranians would have continued their nuclear program, and if they would have really buried it deeper underground, as the information from the US suggests, and if they would have enhanced their air defense system by modern Chinese and Russian air defense systems, the task for the Americans and the Israelis to strike Iran in a couple of years would have been much more difficult. If the information about the nuclear program is true, yes or no, to be honest, I don't know. I think no one knows other than the Iranians and maybe the Americans and the Israelis. So I expect the conflict to continue for a few more weeks in a very tough way, in a very harsh, seeing very harsh strikes by the Americans and the Israelis. I don't expect this to becoming a war over several months. Why? One point is that President Trump would never have agreed to such a long war in the face of the upcoming midterm elections.
All right.
Yeah.
So finally, as I think everyone agrees, and Mohammed,
I can agree to that. That actually makes perfect sense. Like, yeah, Trump wouldn't agree to a long-term war, especially coming to midterms. He want to wrap this up early, and then they're going to turn around and gaslight us and call us a bunch of panicans for pretty much getting mad about us getting into a conflict with Iran that cost American lives and pretty much threw the entire Middle East into turmoil. So, I mean, hey, look, like I said, if it gets ended, I'm going to be happy. But I'm not gonna like the gaslighting after. It's gonna be like, well, you see, we told you nothing was gonna happen. All we lost was 6 soldiers. Set like, bruh, really, bro, really? Okay, bro, okay.
It said this is an existential crisis for Iran. If the goal is regime change for the Americans and Israelis, it would seem more, can they succeed in elevating a pragmatic leader within Iran, an insider who's capable of recalibrating policy even if the system is still in place?
I think that is extremely, extremely difficult. And I don't think that Americans and Israelis are looking for a quick regime change because of a couple of reasons. First, in Iran, there are millions who hate this regime and want to bring it down. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, it has millions also that are extremely loyal to the regime. How do we know that? Just 18 months ago, 2023, when there was a presidential election. So the ultra-conservative candidate, Saeed Jalli, has received 13 million of votes. And those who voted for Masoud Pezeshkian are not necessarily anti-regime. Half of them are loyal to the regime, at least. So roughly, based on this simple mathematics, we're talking about 20 million people. It's not a typical Middle Eastern dictatorship that it's holding on the weapons and imposing its wills on people. Yes, there is a growing public frustration and there is a growing public discontent with the regime. However, it still has a very huge base as well. That's one side. But on the other hand, so IRGC is not merely an army. It is a political, ideological, and economic pillar of the Islamic Republic. And these guys are not going to just surrender, submit their weapons, and leave just because they came under the pressure.
Right.
So they will stay there because it is their revolution and it is their state. So as long as the army is in place and as long as the regime still have millions that support it, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
Eventually, yes, but not in any foreseeable future yet.
Briefly, Mohammed, your thoughts about that, the regime?
Like I said, he brought up the same thing I did when he said, bro, a lot of people participated in their elections. About what? Like 30.5 million people. So that goes to show that, yes, there are millions of people in Iran that support the government. And if you take that 30.5 million out of the 93 million, I'm thinking you're like somewhere around like 60%. No, not 60, 30. Hold on, I'm gonna do the math in my head. But you guys get my point here. Like, that's a very large number of a population. If we're talking about a total population of 93 million and we got 30.5 supporting the government, do you think it's going to be easy to infect a regime change? Do you think it's going to be that easy?
In the system remaining in place in Iran, can the Americans succeed in finding someone to take over, even with the system in place? Let's say a scenario like they have in Venezuela right now with Delcy Rodriguez in place, but the system still in place.
The short answer is I don't think there's a quick or easy path to doing that, especially without putting boots on the ground. I just wanted to say I thought what Wolfgang said was really, really interesting about the nuclear program. However, I would just say this. If this were really about the nuclear program, we all know that there's a much easier path to ensuring that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon, and that is the path of negotiations. We know that it was the United States and Donald Trump that walked away from the Iran nuclear deal, and it's the United States that's refused to engage seriously and substantively at every stage in the second term with a negotiated agreement.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for a very interesting discussion.
To be real with you, we just weren't negotiating in good faith. Like, that's just a fact of the matter on that one. But all right, though, let's go ahead and get into our guys over here at CNN. And then we're going to get into some, dissenters of Trump who are, MAGA. But apparently, you're not MAGA if you don't support this war, even though one of the reasons we voted for Trump was because of no new war. But apparently, you support the Ayatollah. You was never MAGA if you don't support the strikes in Iran. Like, okay, bro, whatever. Obviously, you forgot the mission. You forgot what this man stood on, but it's all good. It's all good. All right, let's go ahead and get to the next video here. If I can hold on here, let me see.
We're going to hear from the Pentagon officials with an update on Operation Epic Fury.
Mark Meredith is live in Washington with more. Mark.
Brian, Anthony, and Lawrence, good morning, friends. Later this morning, America's top military leaders will give the country an update on what's been called an unprecedented operation to eliminate Iran's ability to threaten the U.S. and its allies. Today's briefing also likely to shed more light on the deadly drone attack which killed 6 service members in Kuwait. The Pentagon releasing the names of 4 of the 6 killed, which include 35-year-old Captain Cody Cork of Florida, Sergeants First Class Nicole Moore of Minnesota, she was 39, 42-year-old Noah T. Jins of Nebraska, and 20-year-old Declan Cody of Iowa. Nicole's husband, speaking with the Associated Press, quoted, "She was almost home. You don't go to Kuwait thinking something's going to happen, and for her to be one of the first, it hurts."
Yeah, guys, make sure to keep these soldiers and their families in your prayers, because I already know it got to be hard for the children. I mean, the wives, mothers, family members. It's got to be hard for them. But like I said, keep them in your prayers, and RIP these American soldiers. May we take a moment of silence. Appreciate you guys for participating with me in that. But all right, let's go ahead and head over to CNN.
Wave of the military campaign against Iran killed the long-serving supreme leader, but the regime is still operating as designed. Its governing structure is unlike any other political system in the world. Unlike Iraq.
Well, guys, and if you want to help us hit that call-in goal, make sure to go ahead. You can, hit the QR code at the top, and you can go ahead and Venmo me, whatever, and we'll go ahead and that will double towards the call-in line. So if you send $5, it equals 10, 20. You guys get what I'm talking about. Or you can just super chat in any question, comment, jokes, or disagreements, and you can also help by double tapping that screen and liking the video.
Iraq or Syria, where taking down the head of the regime made the whole system collapse, Iran is structured for longevity.
The Iranian political system is not a one-man show. It is a system.
President Trump told the Iranian people to
take over your government. It will be yours to take.
But that's more complicated than it sounds. Effectuating regime change in Iran will depend on big structural change or even collapse. Here's how Iran built its government to sustain attack. While the supreme leader is the most powerful person in the Islamic Republic structure, the country's constitution also distributes power throughout different layers of government, so it's not centralized.
Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, it's supposed to be considered a constitutional republic, bro. I was like, bro, what? Yeah, it's supposed to be a constitutional republic, apparently. Remember, it's the Islamic Republic of Iran. Crazy.
Supreme leader, a person in the Islamic Republic structure, the country's constitution also distributes power throughout different layers of government, so it's not centralized. The supreme leader appoints the head of the judiciary and oversees the president, who's elected by the people.
Yep. And they select about 5 candidates, I believe, to run for president, and the people elect the president.
As are members of parliament, and candidates for office have to be approved by the Guardian Council. This 12-person body is run by half religious leaders appointed by the supreme leader and half scholars appointed by the judiciary and approved by the parliament. They have a lot of power and can help veto any of the parliament's legislation. Now, when that happens, another body steps in, the Expediency Council. They help settle disputes between Parliament and the Guardian Council, but their main role is to advise a supreme leader, who also selects the members of the council.
The Islamic Republic is a hybrid political system born out of a revolution. That's why it has so many powers.
Well, it's like a facade of a constitutional republic. I mean, the supreme leader control all your representatives that you vote for that's supposed to represent, well, you. It's all picked by one guy. I mean, you know what? I would like to say there's a bit of a relation to kind of how ours work a little bit, but here's the problem. We don't got a supreme leader just picking out all the candidates. The candidates kind of got to win over the people in their selective districts, cities, states, etc.
Because the revolutionaries preserved some of the institutions of the monarchy, but because they didn't trust them, they created parallel institutions.
One of those crucial institutions is the Assembly of Experts. These members are elected to 8-year terms, and candidates also have to be approved by the Guardian Council. It's this group comprised of 88 male clerics who are supposed to be responsible for overseeing the supreme leader.
It's completely lost its value as an oversight mechanism and became a rubber stamp mechanism just to praise the supreme leader.
While he's appointed to serve for life, the Constitution gives the
Lackeys.
Assembly of Experts the power to get rid of him if he's incapable of performing his legal responsibilities or becomes deficient. If he is removed or if he dies, it's the experts who choose the next supreme leader as soon as possible.
AKA the guys who are pretty much ass kissing the supreme leader is the one who's going to choose as the next supreme leader. AKA there ain't really going to be too much of an ideology change.
Meanwhile, a three-person group of the president, head of the judiciary, and one of the legal scholars on the Guardian Council, selected by the Expediency Council, take the supreme leader's place. This entire system was designed for the supreme leader to be replaceable and for the regime to function without one. But it's still an incredibly powerful position. The supreme leader commands the regular army charged with defending the country and the IRGC, which is in charge of defending the regime, its missile arsenals, and the IRGC.
You know, it's funny. We do mistakenly call it the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, but it's actually the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So yes, like that's the real name of the IRGC is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, not Iranian.
Which is in charge of defending the regime, its missile arsenals, and Iran's regional proxies.
Iran is one of the only countries that has two armies, because the army of the time of the Shah, which was trained by the United States, was not trusted by the revolutionaries, and therefore they created the Revolutionary Guards as a force loyal to the revolutionary system.
The well-funded, well-armed IRGC is considered the country's elite military force. It has more than 150,000 troops. It's them, along with the police, who've carried out deadly crackdowns on protesters, and them who have fired retaliatory strikes on U.S. bases in Israel and also on civilian targets throughout the region, hotels, airports, and apartment buildings. After Trump's comments, the IRGC warned that protests would be treated as collaboration with the enemy.
The Islamic Republic is a deeply entrenched and also deeply benched political system. In order for it to be able to completely lose its control over the Iranian society, the US would have to basically dismantle the Revolutionary Guards and all the other security forces, police, riot police, intelligence, which is a very difficult task.
The Pentagon has not laid out regime change as a military objective, but Trump has clearly embraced